Welcome to 100. Welcome to 100 yards of football. Today we have an NFL team preview, and it's the Minnesota Vikings. Joining me to comment on the Vikings is my co-host. The young man played 12 years in the National Football League with the Atlanta Falcons. He was a first-round pick in the 1981 NFL Draft, and he was a two-time All-American at Florida State University. The very talented, and I call him the legend, Mr. Bobby Butler. So, if you like the video today, please comment and share it as we're going to break down the outlook of 2020, the Minnesota Vikings. So, Brother Butler, what do you like about the Minnesota Vikings heading into the 2020 NFL season?
There's a lot to be excited about with this team. You know, since Mike Zimmer, the head coach, has taken over this team, they consistently, Vincent, been one of the top defensive units in the National Football League. But then when you look at this offseason, they lost a lot on their defense. They lost Everson Griffin, D tackle, who's a great player. They lost Florida State alumni Xavier Rhodes. They lost Trey Waynes. They lost Mackenzie Alexander. So they got some holes this offseason with some veterans leaving them. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say this right now before I break down each segment. They're going to be fine on defense. They're going to be fine. Starting with their left defensive end, Daniel Hunter. Two-time Pro Bowler. He's a beast. He's had 14 and a half sacks the last 2 seasons, right? He's a monster. Then you got the right defensive ends. This guy right here is developing into a very fine NFL talent, Mr. Ofade Ndenigbo. He is really developing into a fine defensive end. I like him. And then you add that man. I'm a two-technique guy. See, when you play corner, you got to have the edge rushers. I got that. But how you get the interception, Vincent, is when you get that push in the middle. When you got those two techniques, pushing those offensive linemen in the quarterback's lap. So they just picked up Michael Pierce from the Baltimore Ravens this offseason. And he's going to add a lot to them. He'll control the line. Matter of fact, he'll make sure that his linebackers make a lot of plays because he won't allow the offensive line to be blocking downfield on the second level, right? And then you have Shamar Stephen. He's a good D tackle. He's back for the Vikings for the second stint, right? And so your upfront guys, hey, look, man, they're pretty good. And we added some good ones in the draft. But the linebacker core, man, these guys, man, listen, Anthony Barr, 4-time Pro Bowler. Eric Kendricks, Pro Bowler. Eric Wilson. These 3 guys right here, there's none like this group right here. So they're strong. So their front 7 is one of the best front 7s I see in the National Football League. And then when you start going in the secondary, when you start going in the den, now the kitchen is straight, right? We got heat in the kitchen. But we start looking in the den, we got some of the best players in the den. Now remember, they lost Xavier Rhodes and they lost Trey Waynes, right? 2 great corners. Well, you got a guy named Mike Hughes, left cornerback, who it's about time. He's ready. Listen, he's ready. If he can stay injury-free, I believe it's his time, right? He's a very physical corner. He can cover on the outside. And I like this about him. He can also play the slot. He can play the nickel. So he's a multi-versatile DB. I like him. Then we got a first-round selection out of TCU, all right? And he's gonna pay dividends, Mr. Jeff Gladney. I love him up close and personal. Now, when I say up close and personal, I want y'all to understand what I mean. I mean a cornerback up in your face with his hands up, playing bump and run, laying hands on people. I love the way he played up close and personal. He's a first rounder. He's going to be in the lineup. And he's going to develop real quick. But their safeties got to be the best pair in the National Football League. Strong safety, Harrison Smith, 5-time Pro Bowler. 64th on the NFL top 100 going into this season, right? And then you got at free safety, Anthony Harris. And Anthony Harris last year led the league. He was tied, but he led the league in interceptions last year. Great tandem at safety. And see, when you got veteran safeties like that who know what they're doing, they'll be able to take that young man, Jeff Gladney, and put him in the right place. They'll bring him along real quick because of their leadership in the secondary. So I don't see their defense taking a back seat. Now they lost their defensive coordinator, and now Adam Zimmer, who is the coach's son, the linebackers coach, is going to coordinate along with D-line Andre Patterson. They're going to do it together. And here's what Coach Zimmer did this offseason. He hired, as a defensive consultant, a guy by the name of Don Capers. Now, Don Capers is an expert in the 3-4 system, because Zimmer is an expert in the 4-3 system. So now you're going to see a lot of hybrid things going on there. Bruh, it's going to be off the chain. I'm telling y'all right now. It's going to be off the chain. So their defense, hey, even though they lost those bodies, they're going to do well. And then when we look on the offensive side of the game, listen, they got 5 Pro Bowlers on offense. First of all, let's start with the offensive coordinator. Y'all know this name, Garrett Kubiak. He's a new offensive coordinator. We know about Kirk Cousins. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. But here's the thing about Kirk Cousins that you need to know. We know what he can't do, but let's talk about the things that he can do. He's very accurate. He had 5 games last season where he completed over 80% of his passes in 5 games. I ain't say 50, 80% or higher in 5 games last year. 107.4 passer rating last year. That ranked him 4th in the league. Very accurate. And here's the other thing. He's ranked number 58 out of the top 100 players in the NFL by NFL Network. So they got a quarterback. They bought him a couple years ago. And then we got arguably one of the best tailbacks in the game, Florida State, down there from the 305, down there in Miami-Dade County, Mr. Dalvin Cook. He's a Pro Bowler last year, rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, and only played 14 games. Now, what Dalvin's got to do, he's got to stay injury-free. We know that, right? But Dalvin is an all-purpose back. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball, right? He can do it all, right? And so then they got this fullback who blocked for Dalvin named C.J. Ham. He's a Pro Bowler. When the last time you seen a fullback make the Pro Bowl? Well, he did it. And I'm going to tell you one thing about him. He reminds me of one of my teammates by the name of William Andrews, because C.J. Ham can run the ball, he can catch the ball, and he's a great blocker. All right? And then you got in the wide receiver room, 2-time Pro Bowler Adam Thielen. I like him. Vincent, I really like him. He can do it all. He's a great route runner, but he knows how to attack the ball. He going to get that ball. He make plays. And then, they lost Stephon Diggs this offseason. But I think that's okay, Vincent, because they just signed in the first round from LSU, Mr. Justin Jefferson, who caught over 100 balls his last year at LSU. He's a go-getter. He's a 6'2", 295-pound go-getter. He's going to make it happen. He's going to make it happen. So their wide receiver room is good with those 2 alone. And then when you add Pro Bowl tight end Kyle Rudolph to the mix, he's a 2-time Pro Bowler. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Every quarterback needs a great tight end. If you got a great tight end, that's going to help your numbers. So I like that. Their offensive line, pretty much, they're okay. But Coach Rick Dennison coached them up so well last year, they played above their head last year. And they're going to be fine, right? They're going to have that same chemistry. He's going to coach them up again. You got Riley Rife at left tackle, Brian O'Neill at right tackle, Pat Eflin, Garrett Bradbury, and then you got Dakota Dozier. Those guys are going to play together, develop chemistry, but they're going to add a guy named Ezra Cleveland to that room, to that rotation. He's a rookie. He's going to pay dividends as well. And so their offensive unit is sound. Hey, listen, the Vikings going to have a great year this year. Bar any injuries, they're going to have a great year this year. And I'm going to tell you, I love them. I love them. And so final analysis with them, Vincent, I say that it's time. I think it's time for the shift to change. Now, the Vikings have been a playoff team the last few years, but I think it's time for them to win the division this year. I got them winning the NFC North. That's my final analysis on the Minnesota Vikings.
Man, I'm going to tell you about the Minnesota Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Usually me and you don't agree, and that's no disrespect because I know you're NFL royalty, but I usually go against the grain against you. A lot of people who haven't been watching 100 yards football know that.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I'm going to take your great knowledge. I got the Vikings win the NFC North. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people are saying they lost 8 starters off their defense, but they returned 8 starters on offense. Mm-hmm. To me, with the Vikings this year, it's all about the young man from Michigan State, Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
A lot of people are saying, is he worth that 3-year deal, $84 million in that 2-year extension? Mm-hmm. Well, if you look what he did last year, he played very well in the playoff win over New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He kind of took a step back against a very good San Francisco team. Right. But this is his team now. Mm-hmm. And this is a guy, as you said, is very accurate with the football. But when all the pieces are in place offensively, he's very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And when you look at it, man, I like the young man from 305, mm-hmm. South Florida, mm-hmm. Miami Finest, Dalvin Cook. If he stays healthy, and I know I hate to say this, but if Mr. Cook stays healthy, it's no question in my mind he's the best back in the game. Dual threat, he can do it all. But he's got to stay healthy. He's missed 18 out of 49 games. Right. That's critical for their success. Mm-hmm. I love the offensive line. Brad O'Neal is one of the upcoming young tackles in this game at the right side. Mm-hmm. Elza Cleveland, who they drafted out of Boise State, is that stud. Should have won the first round. He's the guy that's going to come in and play real well. And the offensive line is going to keep moving. Because remember last year, they finished 6th in the league in rushing the football. On the outside, I know a lot of people say they lost Stephon Diggs, but let's be honest, Brother Butler, he wasn't happy there.
He wasn't happy.
Minnesota's a run-first team, and he wanted the passes. Mm-hmm. He wanted the receptions. Mm-hmm. Receptions lead to money. But that wasn't going to happen in Minnesota. But as you said, they're going to be all right because they're bringing a man up from the state of Louisiana, Justin Jefferson. 111 receptions last year, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns in the most serious, best college football conference in the world, the SEC. No disrespect to you, Brother Butler. I know you played in the ACC, but it's what it is. Justin Jefferson is going to make everybody forget Stephon Diggs like this. Mm-hmm. Quiet. Mm-hmm. And defensively, Donnell Hunter, only 25 years old, at LSU. That's all right if they lost 8 starters. But this young man has, 54 sacks? And it's only 4 years of existence. Right. And when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, think about their history. They were known back in the day as the Purple People Eaters. Right. Mm-hmm. And they had a young man that was out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, by way of the University of Minnesota. Right. And he looks good nowadays because he can dress. My man, Mr. Carl Eller. Well, my Donnell Hunter is going to replace Carl Eller as the best defensive end in Minnesota Vikings history. And they linebackers. Eric Kendricks, I call him Chico DeBarge of football. Good-looking guy. But it was no question last year he was the best linebacker of all of pro football. Right. And as you said, Brother Butler, you mentioned Anthony Harris. But I'm surprised. Today, you got to give some love to the state of Tennessee. Harrison Smith, by way of Notre Dame, out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
That's right. That's right.
It's probably the best safety in the game.
That's right.
But what's most impressive about this football team, they're going to be young, but look at their draft. And I compare their draft to the 30 dozen of the 1975 Dallas Cowboys. Remember who the Cowboys took that year? They took one guy named Randy White out of Maryland.
That's
they
right.
took another one, pretty boy Thomas Henderson out of Langston. They took another gentleman, Randy Hughes out of Oklahoma. They took another guy, offensive tackle out of Stanford, Pat Donovan. Mm-hmm. And this draft that they had reminds me a lot of this because look at the Vikings draft. All the people they selected in early, from picks 1 to the 3rd rounds, look who they took. Justin Jefferson. I just said the most productive receiver in all of college football last year. Mm-hmm. Jeff Gladney, as you just said. You said you love him, Brother Butler, but what I like about the young man out of TCU, battle-tested, 4-year starter, 43 passes defended. Mm-hmm. Oh, we. Then I like the man, just go for my man Mark Bass, because he's from the state of Texas. The young man out of Waco, James Lynch, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes, sir.
13.5 sacks last year.
That's
He
right.
can play.
He can play.
And then my young man out of the state of Mississippi, by way of Stockville, where my father's peoples are from. Love to you, Dad. Chester Turner today. Cameron Dantzler, corner, 6'2", 190. He might be the best player out of their whole draft class. And the reason I say this, look at Mr. Dantzler. If you want to judge him, go back to the game film when they played LSU. And look what he did against Jamar Chase. He did this to him. He put that glove on him. And Mr. Butler, you know about that glove. And then they got the young man out of Oregon, Troy Dye, who led the country in the, I believe, the Pac-12 in tackles.
Right.
First team 3 straight years in a row. They have got some serious players in their draft. And they got good young players. And that's kudos to Rick Spam and their GM. I love this Minnesota Vikings team because they're going to be young. They're going to have some serious players. And they're going to be hungry. And they got a very experienced quarterback. Well, a lot of people have not given his due. All we talk about is Kirk Cousins. He's 0-9 on Monday Night Football. He really won his first big game against the Saints. But like you said, Brother Butler, it's something I like about him. It's just something I like about him. He's really held up against all the pressure. And think about this. A lot of people saying, well, he lost Stephon Diggs. But he said it's a win-win situation for Mr. Diggs and the Minnesota Vikings. Think about what he's doing at night when he's sleeping. He thinking about that young stud out of LSU by the name of Justin Jefferson. And like I said, the key to me for the Vikings, they got a hell of a coach in Mike Zimmer. He loves defensive first. His staff, Gary Kubiak, is a Super Bowl winning coach, the offensive coordinator. His young son, Adam Zimmerman, is being talked about in the circles in the NFL, has been one of the best in the business. Andre Patterson has been a well-respected D-line coach in the league. And they got some good young players. And you mentioned Mike Hughes, even though he's had some problems with his neck, he's next in line. And with him and Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dantzler and the safeties they have, and then they got the young man out of UCLA and Mr. Eric Kendricks and the other gentleman who probably is going to really, under the new defensive scheme, Mr. Anthony Barr. Man, you gotta like a lot about the Minnesota Vikings. Final words, Brother Butler. On the
like I said, Vincent,
out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Well, I really believe that they will win the NFC North this year. I'm excited to see them play. I'm going to tune in on a lot of their games because I think they do have a young and exciting upcoming team mixed in with some veterans. Hey, it's going to be live up there. I can't wait to see the defense play with Don Capers kind of infusing a little bit of the 3-4 defense with that 4-3 mix. It's going to be a very intriguing and exciting time in Minnesota. And so I just say this to the Viking fans. Get ready, get your popcorn together, and be excited about the 2020 Minnesota Vikings.
I'm going to say this about the Minnesota Vikings. It's something that we always say to the great singer who put Minneapolis on the map, the legend Prince Rogers. As he said, when doves cry, you better not sleep on the Minnesota Vikings because as one of his other famous songs, let's go crazy.
Go crazy.
Don't sleep on the Minnesota Vikings because this is going to be a real good young football team.
Yes, it is.
So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm Vincent Turner. Much love to the 901. You know, Brother Butler, I got to give love to my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. I love being from the place. God bless. Lamar Avenue, Pine Hill, South Memphis. I love you, baby. The 901 is proud to represent. And Brother Butler, do you want to say anything? Because I know here lately you've been representing South Florida. Final words, my brother.
Well, you know, wherever I go, I'm South Florida. I mean, what can I say? You know, my people back home, the 305, the 561, the 904. Everything down there south of Orlando. It is what it is, baby.
If you like the video today, please comment and share it. We are 100 Yards of Football and enjoy our breakdown of the Minnesota Vikings. God bless and have a wonderful weekend.